Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for this introduction to Rust, for introduction to programming for Rust. It's definitely for beginners. We're going to be covering everything right from the very beginning. And this video, this is the first video of the course, and we're going to be covering variables, constants, mutation, shadowing, and numeric operations. So this sounds like a lot right now. Maybe probably you might not understand any of those terms I just said, but by the end of this, definitely will understand them, and they'll be pretty clear. I want to start out each course with kind of some Rust inspiration, just something cool revolving around the Rust language. And this week I wanted to show you This Week in Rust, or this episode. I want to show you this section. I want to show you This Week in Rust. It's this-week-in-rust.org, and it's a weekly newsletter about the Rust language, and it's pretty cool. It's got some neat stuff. So we'll just go through this most recent one. It's got updates from the Rust community, so news and blog posts. And there's not always like the greatest stuff in here, but sometimes there's some interesting stuff that's pretty cool to read through. There's the crate of the week, which a crate, that's it's like a library for Rust. It's basically a Rust program that can be used within your program. This one's display doc, derive macro to implement display. I'm not sure what all that means without thinking too deeply about it. Call for participation section. It always has this where projects that are looking for helpers, and it has the updates. It tells you all the different updates on the Rust language that have come out in the past week. RFCs, requests for comments. They're usually, a lot of times there aren't any in there. Final comment period, and that's more of that RFC stuff. Upcoming events. This shows, for each different region of the world, the upcoming events, which can be useful, especially if you're in a bigger city. You can find some cool Rust events around you and meet some Rust people and learn a lot more about Rust that way. And then we got the Rust jobs section, and there's always usually like a couple jobs in there, and a lot of them are remote. They'll say remote available there if you can do them remotely. And then this is, I think, my favorite part, the quote of the week. Let's see, I did manage to get this compiled in the end. Does anyone else find that the press of asking the question well on a public forum organizes their thoughts well enough to solve the problem? And that's funny, but yeah, I have definitely run into occasions like that, and I'm sure you will too as you go through your programming journey. Basically, writing the question out helps you just think it through, and then you come up with a solution without even having to post the question. So yeah, and then you can submit stuff, quotes and votes and all that stuff. So that's it. Just wanted to show you that. It's something fun to check out. You can subscribe to it on that main page. You can just put your email in it and get it in your email every week. It's just once a week. They don't, overdo it or over spam you. So it's really cool. I like it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make basically a calculator thing that you give it the discount percent of something and the original price of something, and it comes back and tells you the sale price. So imagine going into a clothing store and you see a rack of clothes that has a sign 50% off on it. Then you look at one of the prices of a pair of pants or something and it's $29.99. So then you calculate in your head that it's $15 is what the sale price would be. But sometimes those numbers are trickier to calculate, and you would want a computer to do it for you. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to make something that can calculate those sale prices. So what we got to do first is make our Rust project. So just want to find a folder where I keep mine all in this Rust folder. You can see I have a bunch of projects in here. You go to the folder where you want to create your project. You click or type cargo, new, and the project name, deal calc in our case, and just hit enter, and that's going to create a folder. So if we look back, and you can see we have that deal calc folder, and then within that folder, we've got a cargo.toml file and a src folder. And this file is basically used by Cargo, which is Rust's, like, I don't know, a development tool. It's used by that to determine things like the name. We can actually go to our folder and look at this file. So yeah, it tells the name, the version, the author, the edition, that kind of stuff. So, but then the meat is in this src folder, and this is where we're going to put all our code. I'm going to open that in Visual Studio Code. You can use whatever text editor you want, as long as it's not like trying to reformat. I wouldn't use like Microsoft Word because it's going to try and reformat stuff on you. But like Visual Studio Code is a good one. Atom Editor is a good one. Even just Text Edit would probably work. Sublime Text Editor is I guess it's a good one. I've never used it really, but Text Wrangler is another popular one for Mac. Oh, by the way, all this code is going to work on any operating system you have. So it's not, if you don't have Mac, if you're not on Mac OS, you're going to be perfectly fine running this code. It's still going to work. Just use whatever terminal or command prompt you have on your system and just follow along. So now getting to variables. A variable is a word that holds a value. For our calculator, we're going to need to hold the discount percent value. So that'll be 50% off or 40% off, 30% off, whatever it is. We want to hold that in a variable so that we can change it easily, and it'll change everywhere where that variable is written. So to declare a variable or to create a variable in Rust, we use the let keyword, let, and then we tell the variable name, which is going to be discount percent, and then we give it an equal sign and set our value on our variable. So basically discount percent is going to hold the value of 40. So what we can do is we can do a print line here. And don't worry too much about this macro. I'll explain a little bit of it here, but so what this does is this is going to take whatever this value is, and it gets put into wherever these brackets essentially become this value, and then whatever's within these quotes gets printed to the terminal whenever we run the program. So it's going to print. It should print 40, the value 40, because it's printing discount percent, which is holding that value. So let's try it. Go to cargo run to run our program, and we'll see it kind of compiles and builds it, and then there it is. There's our 40. So that's what a variable is. It just holds a value. So by default in Rust, variables are immutable. That means they cannot be changed. Think immutable, mutation, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are turtles that mutated into ninjas. So something that is mutated or mutable changes or can be changed. But something that's immutable cannot be changed. In Rust, by default, variables cannot be changed. So this value, it cannot be changed. If we try to say discount percent equals 50 to change that, and then we go to print line, try to print that again, it's going to give us an error. And you'll see it'll tell us that it's going to say, hey, that's not an immutable. That's an immutable variable, and it says cannot assign twice to a mutable variable, which means, yeah, it can't give 50 to this variable because it already gave it 40, and it can't be changed because it's immutable. What we can do, and it kind of hints at this, is we can make it mutable with that mut keyword. So that makes it mutable, so it can be changed. And now, if we run our program, it works. we get 40, and then we get 50. We get print line where it was 40, and then it changes to 50, and then it prints the line there for 50. So that's mutation. Just remember with mutation, immutable, unchangeable, mutable, changeable. By default, everything in variables in Rust are immutable, so they can't be changed. One other thing about variables is the convention in Rust is to make variables what's called snake case, and that just means all lowercase letters with underscores separating the words. Like that. Just to give you some perspective, in JavaScript, the case is camel case, which is you lowercase the first letter in the first word, and then the first letter of each word after that you capitalize. So it would be like this is a variable. And then another one, PowerShell, the convention is actually called Pascal case. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I mean, spelled. And that is similar to camel case, except for the first letter of the first word is also capitalized. So yeah, just like that. So Rust, snake case, you don't have to use snake case, but Rust, the compiler encourages it because it makes your code more readable and more standardized. So people that don't know you or that are just looking at your code, they can easily pick up on what's what. So I change these to camel case, and it'll still run the program just fine, but it's going to give us a warning and just say convert the identifier to snake case. So just a warning, but it's it wants you to have your code in a readable format, and it wants your code to be similar to everybody else's that codes in Rust, so that everybody can kind of share code and read code together. So, yep, no warning now. All right, so let's move on to constants. Constants are very much like variables. They're similar. They hold a value just like a variable. The difference is that they can never be changed. So this can't be changed, right? Because it's immutable, but we can make it mutable and then change it. With constants, you can't make them mutable. You cannot change them at all. To declare a constant, use the keyword const, and we're going to use 100. We're going to actually, this is a constant that we want for our calculation. So we're just going to make that. Another thing with constants, if I tried to run this program right now, this wouldn't work. And let me just add this. It would give us an error, compiler error, because with constants you have to do what's called a type annotation, which is telling Rust what data type this value is. And so in this case, we can set it to like any kind of integer. There's different integers in Rust. There's 8-bit, 16-bit. There's unsigned, which is what that U stands for, which means it doesn't have a sign in front of it. Then there's signed, which I think is I. So there's a 32-bit. So anyway, R100, it'll fit just fine in 8 bits. So just U8. We'll get into types in a lot more detail in the next video. But for now, this is what a type annotation is. It's just this. You put the colon there before the equal sign to tell Rust what data type this value is. So we're telling it it's a U8. And actually, I can show you what it does without that. Gives us an error. Expected, the colon. So see, so it's telling us it wants that. If we give it that, it'll run just fine. There it is, 40, and then it prints our constant of 100. So once again, just constants, once it's set, it can never be changed. That value cannot be changed. And the reason for that is, in programming, a lot of times you want to have something where you know it's not going to change. You know, like, you know, when you're in like looking at like 1,000-line programs, it's nice to be able to see something that you don't want to change and just make it so that, you know, nothing's ever going to accidentally change it. Maybe 5 people are working on the same program and it's, you know, thousands of lines long, and you don't even want to risk somebody being able to change that value somewhere along the line and cause some bug. So with constants in Rust, the convention is snake case with variables. With constants, it's just uppercase snake case. And that tells you when you're reading things that, you know, this is a constant, the value is never going to be able to change on it. All right, so that's constants. So we've covered variables, we've covered constants. Let's look at shadowing. Shadowing is kind of a cool concept. But it's also not super necessary, and it's one of those things, like, you don't have to like memorize this. It's just nice to know it exists, and you might end up using it sometime. So, like, remember how in Rust variables are immutable, so they cannot be changed by default. So we can't say this count percent equals 50, but we can shadow it by adding that let keyword again. And that's going to work. So it's actually going to print here, it's going to print 50. If we add this up here, it'll print 40 and then 50. And I'm just going to get rid of that. These two things that makes this what's called a comment, so the compiler just ignores it completely. It just doesn't see it. So basically this is our code. So the value of discount percent is going to be 40, then it's going to print that value out. Then it's going to be set to 50 by shadowing it, and then it's going to print that value out. So we should get 40 and then 50. Let's try it. Let me clear this out here. There it is, 40 and 50. So that's shadowing, but that's not the best part of shadowing. The cool thing about shadowing is that you can actually add a variable to itself, or, you know, factor a variable in with itself. So like discount percent, so it's 40, so it's going to be this value 40 minus, I don't know, let's say 10. So we should get 30, right? So we can actually use this variable in its own value, and then the new value is going to be 30. 40 minus 10. So 40 and then 30. Yep, 40 and then 40 minus 10. So that's kind of a cool thing about shadowing. But like I said, it's not something you have to worry about too much. If you are doing it, just remember to use that let keyword. But other than that, yeah, you're good on that. So the last thing to cover is numeric operations, and we just did one. We just subtracted 40 from 10, right? So numeric operations are like they're another big part of all programming languages, and in computers in general. Computers just are arithmetic machines. That's basically that's their core function. So these are the big five in most programming languages. Operators, they're called operators. There's the plus, which 2 plus 2 equals 4. And so Rust sees this and it'll add whatever it sees on either side of that together. Minus, which we used here, just subtracts. This is how you divide. This is how you multiply. And then this one, okay, so this one divides, but it doesn't give a remainder, it just divides. So if we say let discount percent, let's just get rid of that. So if we say let discount percent equal 10 divided by 9, that's going to give us, it should give us like a 1. Or no, sorry. It should give us a, comment. This is another type of comment. It's multiple line comment. We'll talk about comments later, so don't worry about that. But Yeah, so we got 1. 10 divided by 9 equals 1. But actually there's a remainder here, right? 10 divided by 9 is 1 with a remainder of 1. To get the remainder, we use that percent sign. And there's our remainder of 1. If we did 8, let's just do 8 to show a remainder of 2, just to show that that's... So, now there's tons and tons of operators in Rust. These are the main 5, but they have a website. If you just Google Rust operators, you can find their appendix here of their the Rust programming language book, and it it lists all of them out for you here. And as you can see, there's all kinds. So, but yeah, that's it for this video. We covered variables, we covered constants, we covered mutability and immutability, we covered shadowing, and we covered numeric operations. So those are all some huge chunks of programming that you now understand. The next video, right at the very beginning, we're going to jump in and we're going to actually make our discount or our deal calculator work. We're going to make it actually do some calculations, since we have all the tools we need basically to do that now. So, and then the rest of the video what we're going to do is cover data types. That's another huge core programming concept, and like this unsigned integer 8. And we're going to go into more depth about that. So it's really interesting stuff. So I hope you stick around. I'd love to have you. And thanks for watching.